my throat. Thanks. Sorry about that, guys. Where does one begin exposing the greatest fraud ever placed upon mankind? How does one begin to explain the level of trickery the legal admiralty banking system has foisted upon each and every one of us, but even more so upon themselves? We have a planet at effect to this nonsense, but mankind is finally awakening to it, though not just on the physical plane level. I've long talked about the yellow brick road magical nature of this place, where many are not only seeing this, but are returning to their causal and true nature as the gods we always were, but simply forgot. While the vast majority of brilliant minds still tinker in the details where the devil lives, they're missing the fundamental nature of creation itself, sound. It's the Phoenician game of law, and one that is based in phonics. We have all been caught under the spells cast via sigils, letters, numbers, and words, and have simply forgotten to really listen in this spellbound state. When we speak any language, the nuances and patterns become deeply ingrained, where assumption and presumption of the word's meanings get lost in the habits we have been so closely trained to accept. It is this very basis that conversations can exist at all. Once we are all well trained to accept the shapes of these sigils, we are then taught to accept very narrow guidelines into their sounds as they are found in words and spellings, where one letter sounds entirely different in one word as related to another. For example, a C can sound like an S or a K, or even cha, depending on the word or the language. The point here is simply to make you aware of this programmed way of deliberate left brain acceptance. In order to break free of the spells, one must first break free of the indoctrination's program that says you cannot sound a word or sound out a word any other way than how you were programmed to say it or write it, lest the teacher give you a great big X on your work. Now remember how carefully you were manipulated to shape these sigils, and how tightly your mind was woven into only accepting these programmings. Take the word exception, for example. Since when does T-I-O-N make a shun sound? Only since you were told it did, and that was the way it was, no arguments. For the more adept readers or listeners, you are already letting go of these langage or tongue pledge games, and seeing and hearing more of what you are really casting as a spell upon yourself and upon others. Let's take a deeper look into exception without all the rules to see what else may be there. The word exception has three distinct sounds at first listen: X, sept, shun. X also has the sound of a single letter X, which opens up a can of worms all by itself. The letter X is the Greek letter chi, which sounds like key or can be pronounced chi as in cheetah. X is also the sigil for the Roman numeral 10, where one can easily be mistaken for an I, which sounds like I, etc. See, this is why you have to have these essays in front of you. Don't worry, you'll listen back. You'll see what I'm saying. Are you starting to get the picture of the depth of hidden paths that are missed based on how rigid we have been shaped through the schooling systems yet? So, when you have the sound X in a word, what can be assumed or presumed? The true and easy answer is that anything and everything can be assumed and presumed by the one you are talking to. How many times have you said something and meant it one way, yet the receiver of those words took them all the wrong way? This is the power of divide and conquer on a subtle level in our day-to-day lives, where the courts, lawyers, cops, and judges take this assumption and presumption to a whole new level of corruption of intent. Anyone who thinks they can go in and verbally argue with someone who will assume and presume whatever they want to ensure they get the desired intent they seek and to make the speaker guilty is a fool of Babylon. The magic contained within the magistrates is all about sound and nothing else. This is why it must be spelled out for them, with our intent far beyond the limited definitions laid out in a book one of their team wrote. I could write an essay on the letter X alone, so let's move on to the second syllable, syllable, shall we? Sept or set is the French spelling of the number 7, or God number. This one opens a case of canned worms all by itself. Ita is the 7th letter of the Greek alphabet and shows as an uppercase H and lowercase n. Magically, many layers are exposed. H in French is pronounced ash and is mainly silent in the French language. Indeed, silence is golden. There is a literal book can be written on this sound, but I want to show the last part of the word exception to present the rule-breaking approach that is needed to re-intend the word via the sound pronunciation back into a more natural-sounding state. The T-I-O-N part now has another syllable in tie-on or T-on, and yet one more in T-I-on. So with the standard program, we're not only led to believe that regardless of what we think the letter sounds like, in their game that really doesn't matter now, does it? I just agreed with that and made up my own rules of play, more in line with the original diversionary tactics. In my playbook, music factors in along with numbers, etc., and pretty much anything goes. What I have found are the remarkable coincidences when one begins to see truer meanings of the hidden bits, where I can see and hear how easy it was to get us creating for someone else via phonics, Phoenician laws. Every single word that can be defined within the body of a word factors into that word, and the sum of the parts becomes far greater than the whole, thus the power of lexicograms. Black's Law has lexigrammers listed in the credits as to compiling contributors. Anyone else think that isn't a coincidence, or is it just me that notices things? Every single sigil has numerous sounds, and even more so when combined with other sigils. I've been asked countless times to compile a dictionary or book relating to this subject, but that would take this lifetime and a few others to do that, where it is only important that one gets the concept of what I am sharing regarding the structure of the spellings. I'm only concerned with how they were established, where everything else we say could be used against us in our ignorance of using someone else's creation. I'll share a few of the basics that I instantly resonate with when I am conversing with anyone in a spoken or written word. The written word is far easier to spot the other intentions, and it takes some practice to start to hone in on the subtlety of the sounds, given most of us shortcut words, where a word like traitor sounds exactly the same as traitors. Sorry, I had to sneeze there. Let me do that again. The written word is far easier to spot the other intentions, and it takes some practice to start to hone in on the subtlety of the sounds, given that most of us shortcut words, where a word like traitor, T-R-A-D-E-R, sounds exactly the same as traitor, T-R-A-I-T-O-R, where we never enunciate properly and merely glaze over sounds via habits and pure laziness. Such is the reason as to why I rant so often about people wanting truth now, like a drive-through window service. People need to learn to simply breathe and learn patience. Impatience is a direct proof of left brain monkey chattering. We all need to take the time to pause where the left brain, Cain, has been our master for too long. You will never pick up on these subtleties until you allow your creative right access, and it is completely barred from your awareness with your mind cluttered with left brain, look how clever I am, shite on a permanent puke mode. As I mentioned, there are a few key sounds and spellings that my radar is always set to, and I find myself stripping words in real time because I have formed new habits where the programmed phonetics rules are removed, where my intention is the master, not the slave. People, for the most part, have no idea about grammar, the prefixes, suffixes, etc., because that is not something heavily focused on in their mind control school centers. First, we have to learn to cast aside all the rules, and I do mean all of them. Here's an example using a favorite word of mine. Pay attention to how the meaning can be shifted into assuming or presuming whatever you want based on the many layers contained within one simple word like physical. There are 3 distinct sounds of phi, psi, and col. Remember, we are lazy in our enunciation, and it is this that is phonetically critical, given that universes are created and destroyed with sound. Now let's play with the sound layers. Phi, or phi, P-H-Y, is sounded with the I as it is found in fit, where I change the sound to sound like the Y in cry. The same sound applies in the second syllable, psi, psi, psi. Phi is the 21st, or God, Greek letter, and is the letter used for the Phi ratio of creation, the golden mean of 1.618. And Psi is the 23rd, or spirit mind, Greek letter. The word is rounded out where we say kol in relation to CLE, not even remotely similar phonically. The standard sound we use for physical can be spelled phys-I-C-O, F-I-Z-Z-I-C-U-L-L. By now you'll start to see why a dictionary of phonics-based words would take literally forever. The good news is that there are a few sounds that show up en masse, so it doesn't take long to see the magic once you slow your left brain enough to absorb this. I will now confuse the living shit out of you to illustrate the phonics, and why you have no idea as to what you're really saying until now, and how humanity has been owned by these Phoenician traitors. I'm just going to list the phonic and spelling variants, but keep in mind that every letter has its own alphabet sound too. P-H-Y-S-I-C-A-L. P-H makes an F sound. H can be silent. Y as in yellow. Phi, P-H-I, or Phi, F-I-E, or Phi, F-I. Psi, P-S-I, S-I-G-H. C-Y at the end of a word, or C-Y at the beginning of a word. You also have sickle, sick-L, sick-col, clay. Clay in French means key, and the S is silent. Psyche, or psych. Fizz, F-I-Z-Z, as I said before. Fies, F-I-E-S. Mild disgust. Pies. Oh yeah, you can have the P sound in there too. Cycle, cycle, etc. C-Y-C-L-E. Starting to see and hear the picture now? With one word, an entire dictionary must be opened to define a myriad of words, and that's not including the lexigrams where the letters can all be rearranged into completely new words and sounds. This is why silence is golden, and what we are saying must be spelled out for this psychotic system. Regardless, the mere fact that this has been uncovered is all the concept that one needs to get to bring in their intent versus being completely spellbound. In the simplest of terms, I like to stick to the obvious ones to show people how to begin peeling layers off themselves. Again, it is only the concept that one has to click on, where we'll leave the details to the devil, Scylla, and toss those into the deep blue sea, Charybdis. Is it a coincidence that our words have Scylla, devil in the deep blue sea? Remember Scylla, the Hydra on one side and the whirlpool on the other? Right. Greek mythology. You should have paid attention in class, silly. So is it a coincidence that our words have Scylla, bulls, or that the spirit made flesh, Ka, ribbed, is? Ka is the Egyptian word for the embodiment of spirit, and is a key sound I listen for. I think everyone needs to brush up on the basics of English regarding synonyms, homonyms, and antonyms are concerned, no?